All right. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Way Up Trading. Now, today, want to go over the move that took place today on AMC Entertainment. Huge run, but not really. No, hold on. Huge move made today, roughly about 4.5%, as much as almost 7% at the height of the day, hitting that $5.15 mark that I had in place, 5.16 generally speaking, but it touched the mark perfectly, came back down, and is now starting to reaccumulate for its next move. We forecasted that this is going to be the time period where I expect to see a 70 to a 100% move from the mid $4 range, bringing us most likely up to a point on the charts roughly around the $9 to $9.19 mark going forward. I'm going to go over the charts, look at some of the situation that we have occurring, take a look at some indicators, and start to get prepared for a move to the right direction, along with the rest of the market pushing upwards, supporting the move finally as we lead into the details with the court case and so on, getting ready for this bullish momentum move to the upside and start getting things back on our side. And we're going to do all of that right after this.
Okay, guys, we're going to the moon.
All right, I got the daily chart up for AMC right now, just taking a look at where we stand. Today we had a massive day, we mentioned before, roughly about a close of exactly $5 on the nose, about a 4.38% move on the day. Taking a look here, you can see the volume above the signal line finally got a little bit of volume in, much less than what I would like to start seeing, being that this stock is actually on the average anywhere between 30 million to 60 million on a regular day. Obviously, volume has been drained out of this thing pretty consistently for the last few months, ever since the news of the lawsuit had gone through. Bogus lawsuit, in my opinion. However, a situation is now starting to move toward the positive direction here for the stock. We're waiting for more volume to start to pour in, but I am starting to see some things happening on the bullish side, where we got the money flow index starting to show positivity, which we'll go over a couple different indicators just to show what I believe is going to start happening very soon. Also, some great patterns that I've also noticed. I've mentioned these before in the past on Twitter, and they're starting to take shape once again on this particular stock right now. And it's looking like we're going to have a nice next couple of weeks to come going into this OPEC season and starting to get this thing going right. But first and foremost, let's take a look at the daily chart. Paying attention here, we have this falling wedge that we've been in, and we've been playing very closely within this larger bull channel, within a descending broadening wedge setup here with the yellow and purple lines and the green and red line showing the downtrend, as well as the low volume push down on this setup. Again, this is off of a larger descending broadening wedge from the beginning of AMC. As you can see here, that yellow and purple line on my left hand side here, and this is also now a retest of this wedge. We had a lot of confluence in this particular area, playing a uptrend here from the lows. This green line you can see here, as well as trying to break out of this falling wedge. Again, this falling wedge on lower volume is generally indicative of a reversal. And again, this descending broadening wedge is the bear market trend that we've been seeing on a lot of different tickers, SPY, QQQ, Tesla, you name it. This particular trend is the reversal trend of the bear market. And we're also sitting inside this larger bull channel here on the uptrend with a midline in this white section here with this dotted midline, which is where I expect us to start to move towards in the very, very near future, with this move that I expect to come going into the reverse split and conversion news to come. All right, I'm here on the one-day chart now, taking a look at some of the indicators, and I have my JS trend candles turned on. You can see it at the top right-hand side of the screen, where my candles have now flipped into the blue positioning, meaning that we are now in a momentum style movement on the stock. Things are starting to flow back into it. Money's starting to come back into the stock, and we are now starting to see the upside potential. I do have my 200 moving average on the daily right now sitting at about $6.36. We have some major crosses are starting to take place, but again, I wanted to go ahead and start off by taking a look at some of the indicators that would show the confirmation that we've been looking for to start getting the move to the upside that we are expecting going into the reverse split setup. Right now, you can see that the first one I have here is going to be the MACD. MACD is now showing it as officially crossed. Histogram is now showing green. You can see that stair-stepping situation here as the price starts to move in the upward direction. And again, volume right over here is now starting to show above the midline after being drained out of volume since roughly about April of 2023. And we have been underneath it and kept held down for quite a period of time now, until now just finally starting to push up, which was the catalyst here for that huge move that we had today, roughly about 7%, before being brought back down a little bit to size right at the support level of $5, which has been pretty instrumental throughout the last several months here. You can see that this line shows you where it has acted as a support as well as resistances in a few different cases, and $5 is a huge level to cross. I would have liked to have seen a $5.05 close or above. However, things didn't work out that way. But we're far from over. The more recent trend right now does seem to be a little bit of a bull pennant, so I'm expecting that things to break out within the next couple of days, being that we are in a very crucial time frame with the CPI being really good, also with the Fed pause on the rate hikes, and not to mention the June OPEX coming up this Friday. That is really one of the main catalysts that we're seeing on these heavily shorted stocks, as well as the rotation that's happening in the small cap sector. Moving right along there, my other indicators that I use, you feel free to add these to your stock charts as well. But these again are just indicators, and I use these for further confirmation for the moves that I look into. But again, you can go and add them. But definitely RSI is one of the staples of the entire trading world. And you can see that I have this yellow and purple line cross. This is the RSI. We got the confirmation cross up on the 8th and have been steadily moving upward. We also had our max momentum indicator showing a move a little bit prior to that, roughly about June 2nd, showing that we no longer have the red bars stair-stepping. We have now had a cross up to the upward side, and are now moving towards the signal line, which should most likely break once we break that 516 mark that I've been mentioning for several months on end. If you have been following me on Twitter, you notice that I mentioned that 516 mark and have been for the longest. It is a very key area on AMC stock, and once we cross above it, we'll start to make our way back up toward that $6.13 mark, which is the line we need to break this macro spring area we've been in for the last few months, well underneath that $6 range. Once we break into that place, we're most likely going to start to see the upward movements that we've all been waiting for after a few periods of consolidation, but we'll get to that at a little bit later point in this video. Moving along here, we have the KST indicator, which is this green and red line here. You can see that this is not fully crossed yet. We are waiting for confirmation. Again, most likely we'll cross once we move in toward that key level and volume starts to increase. I am expecting some sort of harmonic style buying to start showing up very soon. We get a stair-stepping kind of setup here on volume above this midline. That is to come as we get closer and closer toward the end of the month within this volatility range that we're in currently.
You're right. These are volatile times.
You also have the Wyckoff trend oscillator. It's another one I like to use. This red has now flipped green. You can take a look here. That has now shown that we are above the signal line. More confirmation that this is going to start to push. Last time we had that push upwards, and also as well as the other crosses, you can see we hit the $6 mark last time around when we got that push above here. Also back testing this, you can see several times when we actually crossed up, we got our bigger runs. This is the $8 run back here. You can see this crossed upward as well as the KST and so on. Money flow has been the big one. Money flow has been actually on the downtrend for quite a long period of time here. Ever since the end of May, it downtrended from its last push down and has been basically held dry. We weren't receiving any kind of funding or any kind of money coming into the stock at all. That's why they've been able to hold it down for so long. But that's all started to change. The money flow is now starting to make higher highs, and money flow is now starting to make higher highs, the MFI, and we're starting again to get that confirmation to the upside with the flows coming into the stock. We also have the ADX. The green line is now showing above the selling pressure. It's starting to make its way upward. Once we get that cross above this purple line here, we should start to see some pretty heavy momentum to the upside and start pushing some of the targets that we're looking for. All right, now I have got the 4-hour chart pulled up here. And you can see right at this particular point in time, we did go ahead and break back up into and above the downtrend that we've been in. This pattern right here, I made a mention to this in the past on past videos, but this pattern that we see here is this M style pattern that we've had in the past. I made this post a little while back on the last run that we had, that this M style setup here is what we generally will see before it move upward and higher. And AMC likes to repeat this pattern on a regular basis. But right now you can see that it's actually playing out the exact same way. And we have our target set up here. Once we do cross this 200 moving average on the 4-hour chart, we'll see somewhere around the next step or next location of about $5.29. And then from there, we'll start to play this 200 smooth moving average which again is very crucial in crossing before we can start to see our next move up, which would be towards 576, as well as towards the 800 moving average, which is another one I like to use. A very key area for reversals is right over here, roughly at about $6.38. As volume starts to pour in, we will start to see those higher numbers come in very, very fast. I don't think this is going to be a slow trickle where they try to play games and push us back down to $4, try to fill the gap, and none of that. I don't believe that's going to be the case. I said in the past that their best opportunity was to push this thing down prior to the end of May. If they weren't able to push it back towards the $4.04 or $4.08 gap fill, they're most likely going to have a very difficult time doing it while the market is continuing to push upwards, and we start to go into that area where we're looking to go into risk off types of investing and money flowing back into the markets. AMC is the stock that they fear because it's obviously on everybody's agenda. It's people have been watching this thing now for over 2 years, and it's a fear that this one is going to be the one that they pour into pretty substantially. I really believe that the lawsuit was orchestrated, and it was caused at this particular time when the markets were going to turn around based on algorithmic trading, and they orchestrated it in a way to hold the stock back because they knew that what it was capable of and what it is capable of, as this particular stock is in a much stronger position than it was fundamentally last time we ran up to the $30 mark. So the reasons to hold it down this long are completely falling out the window, and they knew it back then and they know it now. So in this situation, we're going to play the charts. We're going to see what's happening here. And right now you can see we're going to start to move up very quickly as volume starts to pour back in, and there's not much that they can really do about it.
Yeah, strategic fit.
I mean, they probably can figure something and use the news to their advantage or disadvantage. APE is something else we're going to discuss as well. That's a whole other topic because of how that moves, but we're going to discuss that in a moment. Here's the 1 hour time frame. You can see that we did go ahead and break through the 200 moving average. You can see how things continue to play up, broken through before we got that big push. I mentioned on Twitter, 492 was a huge area to break, and that's exactly what happened. As soon as we crossed that 492 with some volume started to pour in, and we shot right through that into the $5 range very easily and quickly before being rejected right around that 800 moving average that I mentioned before, a very key area to break. But you can see as we move in a little closer, we have started to flag over it and are looking to have found support right at that same area at $4.97 and are looking to break this thing within the next day or so. Once this breaks, we'll start to make our move up toward the $5.30 mark very, very quickly after breaking 516, which is a very key area as I mentioned before. And moving a little bit closer to the more relevant time frames, this is the 15-minute time frame. We got the deep crab setup here, which is basically this W style, including the after hours movement. Right now, we did go ahead and test that terminal area of 515, bounce back down, and now have tested the support level I had at 497. And now we're going to start playing this move back up and most likely break this 520 mark very, very soon. I can expect to see this within the next day. And if things start to push that way, look out, because we're starting to move in the direction we're looking for. It's going to be a really, really nice setup for the next couple of days. If you're in calls, congratulations on catching this thing. But do be mindful that they do have all types of tricks of the trade where they can take some of those gains out of your hands very, very easily. I.e., one of the biggest things that they use is the news. So be careful. We don't know what kind of information is coming up. So make sure you're taking profits on the way up if you're in calls, and just play this thing accordingly until we cross some of those key levels that I mentioned before. $6.13 is what we need to be above to have a full-fledged, in my opinion, a full-fledged surety of where this thing is going to start to go. My target for the next couple of weeks out going into the reverse split is going to be at $9.19. The $9.19 mark lines up perfectly with the smooth moving average here, as well as the midline of this bull channel we set up earlier, and that would also cause us to break the descending broadening wedge and move us up into this area quite quickly. Rhyme and a reason for why I mentioned 919. It is a level of confluence for a lot of different things. It is us moving out of this phase in the accumulation schematic, and from there we should be able to find our last point of support before we start to consolidate and most likely push up higher. I do not see another possibility of it moving back down. I do see it holding above the $9 and $8 mark before making its reaccumulation setup, possibly maybe even dropping down to somewhere in the 7s before pushing back up towards the target 1 as well as target 2 areas between $20.72 as well as $29.85 going into the end of the summer and early September. So that's my area. Those are my targets, and hopefully you follow along with this and are able to play this thing properly. The ones who are patient, in my opinion, are going to be the ones that are rewarded on this particular type of play, It's been a long time coming, but the opportunity is on its way, in my opinion. Once volume starts to come in the way we expect it to, get ready because it's going to be a nice movement up. I want to take a special look at Ape. This is one that I feel has people paying attention to it, but not as many people are putting focus on it. And from a TA perspective, it has something that we kind of lost sight of due to again, we on this particular channel, we like to focus on making money on the options. We do also do some swings as well as trying to find ways to catch stocks on the way up. And in this particular case, this stock has been trading sideways. It is AMC, it is also an AMC stock and also follows all the fundamentals of AMC. But it is a little bit of a different instrument and it moves differently because it's not attached to an options chain, which has kept this thing from being as volatile as AMC stock is. So in this case, Ape has also, I mean, obviously went from its inception, it was pummeled all the way down to that 60-cent mark. We have all the different lawsuits and all those things happening there. Volume has been dried completely out because of, again, there's the arbitrage opportunity here for AMC being eventually coming down to this price point and Ape catching up to its price point. And it's all up in the air. Obviously, another reason for this being further manipulated is because it's a direct lifeline for AMC to raise cash, which is another reason that they're trying to suppress this thing in order for AMC to potentially run out of money and potentially go out of business. So with Ape, it's a special scenario, and I know a lot of folks have been purchasing Ape. They're probably looking to play the arbitrage to the upside. There's a lot of upside opportunity for Ape, especially after we had that move up to about $3. And the pattern has been there waiting for it to take place, but it's all volume. And right now we got our first little bit of an inkling of things starting to go out positive. And right over here, you can see in the volume profile that Ape is now finally getting above its signal line. And the targets here are very, very tight. You can see here within the last month and a half, most likely somewhere since early May, right? This is right out of the gates. I believe this was about the last earnings call. We've been in this range of about $1.55 to about $1.60, 65 cents at most for the past month and a half. I mean, this is insane. So you can see that we've actually even formed a small pennant of some sort, which has finally started to break above this line. About 161 up to about 166 is the level I'm expecting. And if we can start to now, as you can see, we have this trend line is now flipped blue, or this trend bar is now flipped blue because we're now above the signal line. We can start to go ahead and cross over and start making our way towards 166. And my top level here for this point in time within this short move, we'll be up to about 174. Now the float is a little bit bigger, just about a good 40% bigger than AMC's at the current time. I believe they're going to start to increase this thing as time goes on in order to raise cash as they need it. But if this reverse split goes well, I believe that this is going to wind up playing out where AMC will be able to pay off all their debt, and this thing will most likely go nuclear, depending on what the outcome of the lawsuit winds up being. From a technical analysis standpoint, I believe we obviously were able to get out of this broadening wedge. This is again the very similar setup to AMC, a descending broadening wedge. It had its breakout of the descending broadening wedge on low volume and is basically just traded sideways out of it. Typically, when you break this descending broadening wedge, you get a move up and a retest before you start to go. And you normally will test the line here of the most recent support and start usually trickling upwards, like we've seen on Tesla, like we've seen on the SPY, and so on. That has not happened here, and this is very crucial as to why they positioned it right at this particular area in order for it to not see upside potential. So there is a lot of manipulation happening on this thing. The lawsuit, I believe, is completely bogus, and that's one of the reasons they kept this thing down. But once it starts to get the volume that we're looking for, and once we start to get closer to our catalyst, one or two things is going to wind up happening. It can dump quickly, meaning I expect the possibility of two things. One will be a dump quickly somewhere to around the 134, 149 area, and then a complete bounce and then push back up immediately. That would be the worst case scenario, but it would be violent, coming down to retest the descending broadening wedge somewhere around this point about $1.49 and erupting right back up and most likely touching the top end of about $2.50. If that does not happen, we can most likely start to trickle up here and start to build momentum as things start to cross up and above slowly but surely, along with AMC's move up to the areas I'm believing this are going to happen, which is going to be around the $9.19 mark, and Ape will just follow it up slowly but surely. It won't be as abrupt of a move, but it'll be a move nonetheless to the right side. And those shares that you have, if you've been averaging in, averaging down, should print really nicely for you over time. So that's pretty much what I have on AMC. You know, if you like content like this, let me know. If you have any questions, hit the comments section, leave your questions, comments, concerns. I'll be sure to get back to those as soon as possible. Go ahead and like, subscribe to the channel. It helps out with engagement a whole lot. Gets more information out to people that are interested in the stock. Join us on the way up. We're going to be every single day growing our portfolios together and making the outcome income for 2023. Like, comment, subscribe. Going to see you on the next video. Peace.